Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you are well. I am, if a bit on the cold side. Oh my goodness, it's suddenly gone really chilly. The temperature in the flat at the moment is a paltry, pathetic 11 degrees. Oh, it's horrible. That's about 52 Fahrenheit, I think. Yeah. Winter has come early. Never mind. So yeah, I'm layered up. I'll take some of this off though in a second because we're going to do some cooking. And I thought we will go back to something I looked at earlier in the year. Because it's cold, it's soup season. Yay! I mean, I love soup all year. It's always soup season. But it really feels like it now. So if you remember, at the beginning of the year, well, I think it's like February or March or so, I did a couple of videos where I was trying to replicate a shop bought item to see A, can I replicate it, and B, how cheaply can I do it. So that's what we're going to do today with lentil soup. So this is lentil soup from Lidl and it cost 62p. I'm going to come more onto the costings at the end, but 62p seems about the cheapest we can do a tin of soup for these days. Some of the supermarket's own brand, they've matched this 62p, but we're not going to get it cheaper. I seem to remember even just like a couple of years ago, they were 50p each. It's just everything's going up and up and up, apart from the temperature, it's going down and down and down. Okay, so, you know, it's quite handy to have a tin of soup in the cupboard, isn't it? For those occasions when the freezer soups have all run out and maybe you're feeling a bit poorly or just dog tired and you just can't face cooking. Even though soup is really quick and easy, it still involves being in the kitchen for half an hour, doesn't it? So having a tin of soup around, yeah, great idea for those occasions. But also, Richard and Paul rang me or messaged me to say Lidl have got the lentil soup again. So historically, my little branch haven't ever sold the lentil. They've just done, I think, tomato, vegetable, and then a couple of others which are meat versions. So I've never even tried it. And he messaged to say it's back in the shops. So on my next visit, I looked and sure enough, there it was. So I thought I'll grab some. And I know that they use it slightly differently in so much as if they've got a bit of their own homemade soup left over, but it's not enough for both of them, they'll grab a tin of this, add it, get it all mixed together, and then there's enough for a portion each. So that's a great idea actually, is if you've got a little bit of leftovers of your own, add this, suddenly you've got 2 more portions. So, yeah, Paul seems to like it. I've not tried it yet. I will try it at some point. Not today though, because I'm going to make my own. And I'm going to try to replicate the ingredients as much as possible. But actually this is my own lentil soup recipe. So I will talk more when we come to costings about an addition you could make to this. And if you made the addition, how does that affect the price? Let's see if we can do it a little bit cheaper for ourselves than 62p a portion. I'm calling that a portion. If I'm having lunch, I want all of that. They call this 2 portions, but I'm sorry, that much soup, how many calories isn't? There's only 94 calories is not enough to sustain me. So when I say portion, I mean the whole 400 gram tin. Okay, so let's look at ingredients and then let's get cooking. So lovely simple ingredients and for the most part relatively cheap. We're going to use 1 onion, 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, but these are really quite such a chunky one. I'll just use 2. A couple of large carrots, or mine are a bit smaller, so I'm going to use the 4 smaller ones. 250 grams of the red lentils. I'll make up 1 litre of stock with my stock powder. I'll also talk, when I talk about costings, talk about doing this with tomatoes as well. and how you might want to, well, we'll come to that when I do costings, but I'm not adding tomatoes to mine. It doesn't need it. If you do add tomatoes, yes, you're going to get a richer, deeper flavour, but it really doesn't need it. And then finally, 3 stalks of celery, and I'm going to use a lot of the leafy stuff too. And how great, do you remember that pot I picked up in a junk shop for, I think, was it £2.50, because it's chipped around the foot. It's the perfect size for keeping my celery fresh in, with a bit of water in the bottom, just keep the celery fresh, and it's carrying on growing. Great. Okay, so let's get on and get this lovely recipe underway. I've got the onions and garlic in to sweat down a bit. When I did the costings, I costed it for using butter to sweat them in. However, I'm using oil today, olive oil. And I think the olive oil works out a little bit cheaper. Either way, I've done the costings for butter. So, chopping doesn't have to be super tiny and neat, because it's a blended soup. It's all going to go in the whizzer later on. And as I mentioned, I'm using some of the nice leafy bits as well. So I'm getting some of that dark green in, as well as all the blanched stuff. Yeah, just rough chopping. Oh, it's too loud to talk when I'm chopping. So I've just made the stock up. Hang on. I have to do this off camera. I've just made up a litre of stock. Oh, I've also looked at the salt difference between my homemade version. Try and chop quietly. Between my homemade version and the tinned version. And then the other thing, as part of my prep, I've just rinsed off my lentils. So I'm going to carry on chopping, but I'll turn the camera off because that's going to be too annoying otherwise. But very simply, I mean, it really couldn't be more simple. Let the, I'll give them another sort of 4 or 5 minutes. Let the onions and garlic sweat down a bit, and then I'm just going to literally add all the other ingredients. So the carrots, the celery, the lentils in, give them a bit of a stir, let them get a bit coated in those oils. Then chuck the stock in, and I'm going to simmer it for 20 minutes, and then we will come back and, well, blend, taste, and talk all about the money. See you in a mo. Just wanted to add something else. This is one of my absolute bog standard recipes for the winter. I probably have a bowl or 2 of this every week through the winter. Historically, excuse me, that's because it was so cheap for me to make from the garden, because I grew my own onions, my own garlic, my own carrots, my own celery, homegrown celery. Oh, it's out of this world. So much more flavour. So yeah, it was super cheap, and like I said, it's such an easy recipe. But it's also one of those recipes, try it as it is. It's lovely. But it's so easy to add other little bits and bobs too. You could, for example, you could add some sort of curry type spices and give it that kind of slightly curry kick behind it. You could add a ton of herbs and make it more of a herby one, especially if you've got a few fresh herbs still in the garden over winter. Think about things, this is one of Paul's tricks when he's doing soup, a tablespoon of peanut butter. That's so lovely. Actually, peanut butter in recipes with squash, I think, is a particularly gorgeous combination. Excuse me. Of course, peanut butter is going to put the cost up, so that's why I don't so much. But yeah, it's a really lovely sort of, it's so basic. You can almost think of it as it is on its own. It's gorgeous, trust me. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm not sure, and then they have a go at one of my recipes and they go, oh, I'm really surprised, it's actually nice. I wouldn't share something horrible with you. Yeah, have it as it is, but also, if you really like it, think about playing around with it. if you've got other bits and bobs hanging around, lying around. There we go. Okay, now we can leave it. Bring it up to the simmer. Sorry, excuse me, tickle. Simmer for about 20 minutes. Blend, sit, eat. See you in a second. Well, that's starting to warm me up. I feel like I've got flushed cheeks. I've closed the kitchen door, so that little bit of heat that's being generated, try and keep it in here, because then, after I finish talking to you, after I've had my lunch and washed up, then I'll be sitting down to edit the video. Keep that warmth in here. I'm staying in the kitchen for the afternoon, in other words. Okay, right, let's talk money stuff. So, as mentioned, the little own sort of Newgate, I think it's like their own brand, 62 pence. And I did look, I saw that, I checked also that Aldi and Sainsbury's also have their own tin at 62p. And that's the cheapest. At the other extreme, the most expensive. So what I've done, this isn't the price per unit, I'm giving you the price per 400 grams of everything, because some things come in a big sort of 600 gram tub, the fresh stuff. So I'm talking about a tin's worth with all these prices, which for me is a bowlful, that's lunch. So Heinz, £1.70. Honestly, does anybody buy Heinz soup anymore? That's absurd. That's nearly 3 times as much as the cheapest of little Sainsbury's, etc. £1.70. New Covent Garden, which is a fresh one, it comes in a carton in the chiller cabinet, £1.44. This is all lentil soups. Sainsbury's supermarket own fresh works out at £1.20. So essentially what I'm having here today, and I'll come to the cost of it, is fresh. So if I was buying the expensive fresh one, this would cost me £1.44 for a bowlful. It's not going to cost £1.44. You know I'm going to get it under £1 at least. Where do we get to? And then Tesco's have got, in their own range, they do a kind of a budget one, the 62p, and they do a posh one, and their posh one is 84 pence. So yeah, it's a range of 62p all the way up to £1.70. Now for a lunch, I consider this a lunch. You might want to have a salad with it, you might want to have a piece of bread with it, have it on its own. It's lentil, this is a filling lunch. I don't want to be spending more than £1 on lunch. No way. So, okay, how's mine costed out? Oh, and just to say very quickly on the salt, because it's on the same piece of paper, this tinned one from Lidl contains 2.12 grams. Mine is going to be about 1.4 grams. I don't know exactly, because I didn't weigh the vegetables and work out their salt content. It's minimal, so it's mostly in the stock. But I reckon about 1.4 grams, so it's a lot less. It's about 35% less salt in mine. I'm using reduced salt stock as well, bear in mind. Okay, so the big thing with this recipe, the big expense, whether you grow your own veg or not, undoubtedly the big expense is the lentils. I just did a quick noticing the other day in a couple of other shops. I was seeing 500 gram bags for around about £2, which is mad. That's so expensive. Undoubtedly, the way to get the cost of this recipe down is to buy a big bag of lentils. So the best deal I could see at the moment, although by the time you see this video the offer might have finished, but even so it's still cheap even when it's not on offer. At Sainsbury's they do a 5 kilo bag. The brand is called Layla, Laila. You might have to go to one of your big Sainsbury's to get it. You might even have to get it delivered. But the 5 kilo bag costs £9. It's brilliant. So that makes it £1.80 a kilo. And remember, I was just saying, half a kilo bags in a lot of the shops around here are more than the price of a kilo with the big bag. They did have an offer on with a nectar card. It's back to this club membership thing. With a nectar card, it was £7 for a 5 kilo bag, and that brings it down to £1.40 per kilo. I've based the costings for my recipe on buying it when it's not on offer. In other words, buying it when it's £9 for 5 kilos. You would probably, but like I said, you'd have to probably double the cost of the lentils in my breakdown if you're just buying 500 gram bags from your local shops. Shop around. The thing about lentils is they keep for, they keep for a year or so, possibly even more. So if you think a 5 kilo bag over the course of a year, it depends how you cook, doesn't it? But I use lentils a lot. It makes sense for me to have the big bag. Anyway, costings. So I have used carrots, 20 pence, onion, 16 pence, celery, 15 pence, lentils, 200. Oh, I've priced it at 200, not 250. Sorry, hang on, I've got to do it quick, but I've priced it for 200 grams. Did I use 250 just now or 200? I meant to use 200. I've done the maths for 200 grams. 36 pence, butter 19 pence, 1 litre of stock 27 pence. So in total that comes to £1.33, and that's going to give me 4 portions. That's going to give me 4 tins at 33 pence each. So just about half the price of shop bought, and about 35% less salt. Yay! Now I mentioned when I was looking at when I was talking about the ingredients about the addition of tomatoes or not. The reason I was mentioning the tomatoes is I was looking at their ingredients. Now theirs does include some potatoes. I don't know why you would add potatoes. The lentils are going to thicken it anyway. Otherwise, we are very similar, apart from they've got all sorts like leek powder, garlic, firming agent. Why do you need a firming agent? Natural flavourings, this, that. There's all sorts in here. But I think we're pretty similar apart from the tomatoes. There are some tomatoes in here. So I've costed this. So if you did a litre of stock and all the other ingredients I just mentioned, and then added a tin of tomatoes for 40p. If you add the tin of tomatoes and you've got the litre of stock, you're going to end up with 5 portions of soup. So adding the tomatoes puts the cost up to £1.73, but you'll get 5 portions out of it, so that's going to end up being 35 pence, so a little bit more expensive. You might want to add more lentils, that's going to put it up a bit more again. Or what you could do is add the tin of tomatoes, but reduce the stock by, instead of a litre of stock, have 600 mils of stock, and then you've got a 400 gram is equivalent pretty much of 400 mils of tomatoes. So you still end up with a litre of liquid, so you're still essentially going to end up with 4 portions. So if you do it that way, reduce the stock, brings the price down again, add the tomatoes, puts the price up, it works out at about 40 pence a portion. So even adding a tin of tomatoes, you're still going to get it way less than a shop bought tin. It's like I said right at the beginning, having the tin, excuse me. Having a tin of soup in the cupboard, great. I'm not being a snob about tinned foods, not at all. For me, it's always been about, well, I've grown my own veggies, I'm growing my own food, I'll cook with it, I'll make my own. But having a tin in the cupboard, great for those times when you're feeling a bit blur, or I haven't even put a timer on this. Hang on, I'm just making a note of the time. Okay, I'll give it another 10 minutes or so. Yeah, if for those times when you're just feeling blur or just really, really busy, or as sometimes happens, I come in from doing stuff out and about in the morning and I get back and I think, I didn't get any soup out of the freezer for my lunch. Oh, you dingbat. Now, of course, if you've got a microwave, you can defrost it in a microwave. I don't have a microwave. I don't need one. Don't want one. Don't have space for one. So yeah, again, a tin in the cupboard, worth it. But certainly, if you're trying to cut your food bills down, I mean, I've just shown it over and over again, haven't I? That if you cook everything from scratch yourself, you're going to bring your food bill down. Of course, my gas bill is going to go up a little bit because I'm using the hob. But if I've got that on for 25 minutes in total, actually a little bit more, maybe 27 minutes of sweating down the onions, and then this simmer, I can't remember what it costs. I did work it out, it's about 10p or something. So that's but it's still going to be way less than buying the tin, and you'd have to heat the tin up anyway, wouldn't you? And because I've got this on, I'm warming this room up a bit. So I'm making it actually a room that I'm going to be able to work in this afternoon without my fingers being frozen cold. Right. Anyway, so that's it. I've made this soup with you guys before, ages ago. So I'm not going to keep you hanging around today for me to do the blending and the eating and all that. I'll tag the other video on at the end so you can see the final result. But it's basically, see what's on there? That's basically what I'm making. It'll look almost identical to that. And it will be yummy, and it will be filling, and it'll be warm, and it will just feel like a hug in a bowl on a really, really chilly day. Gosh, we're heading into winter, aren't we? Gird yourself, summer lovers. It's begun. All right, lovelies, I'll see you all again really soon. I'm not sure what we're doing next. Oh yeah, I might just have a bit of a catch up either in the next one or the one after that, of a few bits and bobs to catch you up on to do with my house move. No, nothing in terms of dates yet. I don't have a date yet, but things are progressing a bit, so I'll catch you up on those in the next or so video. So until then, please, really short one today. Yay, a short one. Look after yourselves. Have fun in the kitchen. Have a go at this recipe. It's really, really simple, but so yummy and lovely in the winter. And then have a go experimenting, chucking other things in, whatever tickles your fancy. Little curry spices work really nicely. They go perfectly with lentils anyway, don't they? I'm waffling now, so I'll shut up and see you whenever the next one is. Until then, cheerio, lovelies.